Welcome back, everyone. Well, this is episode number 1 of building IG-11. This is IG-11, and I've already printed off all of the head parts, and I've always wanted to make an IG-11 after watching The Mandalorian. So this is my attempt at doing so. I bought the files from Droid Division on Etsy. Really good company. I encourage you to do that if you want to build this guy. And along with files came some links to people that have already done this and made an animatronic version of him. That's really what I wanted to do. Found out though that some of the animatronics don't work as good as they probably could due to some servo motor problems. So what I thought I would do is kind of look at using stepper motors, because I just use stepper motors in my C-3PO head. They seem to work pretty good. And I'm going to do that in this IG-11 head. So I'm going to put 3 steppers in here that will rotate the head in various routines, or maybe just random even, and see how that goes. So just in this episode, what I'm going to do is show you the fusion files, and then I'm going to show you the parts that I've already printed, how they kind of go together, where all the bearings are, and then in another episode we'll look at the lights and maybe the servo that operates the eye and maybe the sound and things like that. So you might be wondering, why are you starting another project when you haven't finished R2? Well, that's a very good question. I don't know, I've got a sickness. But I like to have different projects going at the same time, because sometimes you're waiting for a part to come in, or you know, some filament or whatever. You could be working on something else at the same time. So that's what I'm doing with this guy. So let's get started. I'll show you the fusion files and we'll go from there. Here's my fusion file for the IG-11 head. I just want to show you all of the parts that I've got in here and the ones that I've adapted. So rather than using servos, we're going to start off with these NEMA 17 stepper motors. So they're all identical, and they're going to be programmed using an Arduino probably. We'll see how it goes, but that's my plan for right now. And on these, we're going to have some gears. So I've 3D printed some gears for them. So there's a gear there's a gear there, and a gear there. So these gears just fit over top of the shaft of the motor, just a pressure fit, and hopefully they'll work out okay. Now, let's take a look at the tube. This is the tube that goes up the center of the head. It's got holes in strategic locations. I've adapted the holes from the files that were provided to fit my motor system. And not only do they have these mounting holes there, they're going to have larger holes down here where the wires can go through and fall through the middle of the square tube. So that's the tube. If you're building the whole version with the neck and the body and whatnot, there's a body tube, and basically these aren't 2 separate parts, they're just one long part. I just got them colored differently so you can see where the head part stops and where the body part fits into the chest cavity. So I'll just take that off for now because we're not going to be focusing in on that. Now let's take a look at the top. So this is just a square aluminum tube, and the top, I've got a plug this is my own plug that I've put together. I'm going to move the tube. So you can see this is just a 3D printed plug. So it's going to have a captive nut inside here. So you can put a threaded, I think it's an M3 bolt through there, and then one through here as well. And what that's going to do, it's going to hold on, the bolt through here is going to hold that cap in place, or that plug in place, so that the top cap can get screwed into it. So that's what the top cap looks like. But rather than that, let's just work our way through this from the bottom up. So here is the stepper mount that goes on the bottom. So it's going to be attached with a metric bolt through here, and then bolted down here with 4 bolts as well. And there is also one for the top stepper motor, and the middle one doesn't need one because it's going to be attached a different way. So now that we have that, let's look at the neck top. So there it is. You can see that it's got a spot for bearings here. So I've got there's a bearing there, there, and there. So these bearings, they just get pushed on, and then there's a bolt that goes through and attaches onto there with a washer to hold it in place. And these just spin so that everything can rotate properly. And I might not show you all of the bearings, but that's what they're going to look like. On top of that, sorry, that's the neck top. The neck bottom is this section right here. So let me just rotate that so you can see. So you can see the bottom of the neck tube there. And I'll just put this on analysis mode so you can actually see. So there's the bottom, neck bottom, and then the neck top, and basically how everything's attached. So while I have that activated there, let's look at the next section. There's the lower face, the inner part of the lower face. So you can see that my stepper motor engages with the gear that's on that. And without the analysis on, that's what it looks like. And then that gets placed over top and glued in. So that is the inner part. That's the outer part of the lower face, and I'll just show you that in analysis mode. So you can see that it fits in right there. So it just gets glued in. I'm gonna finish the weathering for that before I glue it in, so I don't have to do that later. And you can see that it's got the race here for the bearings, and then there's a race up here for the upper bearings. So let's move on to that. So before I show you that, let's just shut that off. I'm going to take off that guy so you can see the drive plate. So this is my own drive plate that I put together, and the stepper motor gets attached to it right here. It's not my very own drive plate. I've adapted it from the files. So you can see the stepper motor just barely fits along the edge of the aluminum tube there. And then all of these spots are for bearings to go onto. And let me just bring back, let's bring that back. And the next one is that plate there. That's the eye segment lower. So let's look at that in analysis mode. So you can see that the stepper motor gear just meshes properly with that gear there, so it can rotate. And then there are races right here for the bearings to fit into, as well as on the other side there's bearings that go into this section as well. So that's that. And then the eye segment upper looks like that. And then in here is a spot for the servo motor, which is going to attach to the eye that sticks out here and moves up and down. I haven't got that far yet. And then there's a spot for bearings right here. And then the next section is the sensor segment. It looks like that. And inside of here will be another 3D printed housing that holds all the NeoPixels for the eyes to light up. And then the forehead top looks like that. So let me put that on analysis so you can see what it looks like inside. So basically there is a gear here that meshes with that gear. So this whole section here can rotate, and there's spot for the bearings here that hit the race inside of there. And then on the very top is the top cap, which gets placed on like that. And there's bearings in there that run along the race for that. So that's basically what the adaptions are that I'm using, that I've put together for the IG-11 head, and we're going to see how that goes. So this is just a trial, so let me shut that off, and there's the different sections for them. Let's move on. I'll just show you what the 3D printed parts look like, and then we'll get into the next step where we're going to power up the stepper motors and see how they rotate. Okay, let's take a look at the parts that I've printed off for IG-11's head. I've printed them, sanded them, primered them. They're ready to have some weathering put on them, but before I do all of that, I'm going to make sure all of the animatronics work properly. This is the aluminum tube that is used for the animated head, and I've already cut it to length, and I've also put a sticker on there to show me where the head part ends and the body part continues, and then spots for all of the holes. Now these holes are strategically placed for my adaptations for stepper motors. So basically I've made these mounts that hold a stepper motor. This gets pushed down over top and slides down to where it needs to go, and then it gets held in place with a bolt. And all of the nuts inside are held on these sleeves that I have, so they put a captive nut in there, and then this gets pushed in, and then you'll have a place to bolt onto. The top plug is one that I've designed that's going to have a captive nut inside for this side here and for the top, and this gets pushed down inside there to be flush, and a bolt holds that on. So the stepper motors that are going to be used look like that, and you can see this one here has got the gear on it already that I've created. That should mesh properly with the gears that are already in the files. So let's take a look at all of these parts here. This is the top cap. This one here is the upper dome assembly, and it's got the gear already in there. And then this is the sensor assembly, and it pops right on. It's going to have the other 3D printed section in here that hold all the NeoPixels for the lights. This is the eye segment assembly, and I've already got the bearings installed. This is where a servo is going to go, and then there's a hole right here where the linkage is going to come out for the eye to move up and down, and it's got the race in here plus a gear. This is the drive plate. I've adapted it. You can see I've got some slots in here and a recess underneath to fit the stepper motor, the middle stepper motor. There's a lot of gears on that one. And then we have the face assembly and inner outer. I've already painted the inside part silver, done some weathering on it. It's got the gear at the bottom, and that's what it looks like on the top. This is the race for the bearings, and the race for the other bearings are down here. This is the neck assembly. It has 3 bearings in it, and then this is the part that gets pushed on over top of the aluminum tube. So I'll put these together, and you can see what they look like as I assemble them. Okay, I'll start with the neck, and on top of that I'm just gonna put these on. I'm not going to fasten everything together, just so you can see how it goes. This is the face assembly. You can see how it rotates there on those bearings. The drive plate will be going right in here so that it can rotate around. And then these 3 bearings here are for the sensor assembly. They go on like that. Then the sensor assembly and the upper dome, they fit together. Let's get them slotted in here like that, and then that'll sit in there. And then the top cap, we've got 3 bearings for the race right here. So that's the entire head assembly, and it can rotate independently of each other in 3 different sections. So, next is to install it all with the tube and the stepper motors, and then try it out and see if these stepper motors are actually going to work properly in there. We'll see how that goes. Hey, thanks for watching this episode. I really appreciate it. I hope you're going to join me on this journey. We'll see where it goes. I'm not sure. Starting with the head right now, but hopefully the whole body will be done at some point. God bless you, and please stick around for our thought for today.